Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from LastCar.info coming at you after the conclusion of the HighPoint.com 400 at Pocono, where, pending the results of post-race inspection, Denny Hamlin has once again brought the Boo Birds back upon him there after pulling off a victory there where he pulled the exact same move that he did on Ross Chastain last year, forcing Kyle Larson to put himself into the wall off of turn one, and has pulled off the victory. And despite the USA Network's every attempt, we did not have a fight between the two drivers on pit road. They were going to squeeze Kyle Larson to get him to say anything at that point, and ultimately did in this broadcast here. I have some thoughts on that, as well as the race itself. And we haven't even got to the last place battle part of the story here, too, which ended up being a tale all its own. Part of a chaotic weekend in general at the Pocono Raceway there, where all three series had a series of accidents, some just mystifying moves, and some great racing and a great crowd, but definitely going to be no shortage of opinions flying around about how this all played out here at the same time. And yes, as mentioned in the chat here too, undoubtedly going to be a very interesting episode of Actions Detrimental this week as well. But looking at the results here, I'm cracking up right off the bat here, because as at the moment here in our Kleenex picks of the week here, the thing that Last Bro and I do. Last Bro is actually just coming back from the cross country trip where they went to New Hampshire last week. He picked Kyle Larson to win, and I picked I'm wondering how that conversation is going to go as well. So we've just been talking through text during this one. And I anticipate it'll probably be a lot like what's happening here in this race in general. So, yeah, I think right off the bat, I got to say, it's the same two drivers again, where it was with Denny Hamlin's win at Kansas earlier this year, having a pretty close battle there at the end. But again, I think it seems pretty clear. I mean, the discussion about not having contact or having contact, I mean, it's pretty clear he was pushing him up the track there and put him in a situation where, is he going to back off? I mean, especially where Larson is coming back from that spin at the very beginning of the race, and much like the 600, I guess, last year or the year before, seemed to be driving through practical hell to try to get back up at the front of the field. And given a lot of the incidents we saw today, it was really surprising to see anybody get back into contention here. But Larson was, Larson himself was only one of the drivers really able to do that. I don't blame him for being frustrated at all. Absolutely not. I think it was certainly a controversial finish, certainly, a messy finish. I think something similar could be said about the Xfinity race yesterday, and even argued perhaps on the Truck Series finish. Maybe that was really the theme of this entire weekend. We'll talk about the top three series here as well on this, but I guess we'll go ahead and lead off here with the race results here from the highpoint.com 400 for the race. Hamlin, your winner. Tyler Reddick slipped through to get into the second spot there ahead of Martin Truex. Harvick in the fourth spot there, and Ty Gibbs returns to the scene of his first Cup start when he took over for Kurt Busch in what was then a relief driver role. That's why I brought the 54 shirt out here for this one here. And Gibbs had a fine showing in the fifth spot there after qualifying 11th. Great job by him. Even then, it's only third among the Gibbs contingent. Christopher Bell in sixth. Ricky Stenhouse comes back from seventh after he ran as low as 35th. Was about to take last place in the early stages of the race. Harrison Burton with a fine run. Eric Jones back in the top 10 again. He's really turned it on these last few weeks, and that's good to see since Darlington's not too far in the future here. Another track that he's very competitive on. And Chase Elliott rounding out the top 10. Elliott not really a factor in this weekend after his incident and qualifying, but still a top 10 finish nevertheless. I think they're just kind of just trying to get the most solid runs that they could get in between here. Your last place battle at the very beginning of this one. I think this was very much a race of drivers bouncing back from adversity. At least the first part of this race turned out to be the case. You had a battle between Todd Gilliland at the back of the field there, him getting around B.J. McLeod, and B.J. not even being that far back from Todd, as both of them were catching J.J. Yaley. Yaley spins off of the nose of Gilliland and makes some pretty significant contact with the left front fender of the number 15 Patriot Mobile entry, bringing back the paint scheme with which he had a top 10 run at Atlanta a couple weeks ago. Yaley managed to get back to pit road, lost 3 laps in the process, and then got all 3 of those laps back in consecutive cautions because the drivers were just having a terrible time with turn 1 this weekend. It's always been a treacherous corner. I'm very much used to seeing that corner be trickier with brake issues. If you have like people's brakes wore out, you come down that really long front straightaway, and you think of Bubba Wallace's accident, the 43 a few years ago, Jeff Gordon much further back, and then if you want to go real far back to the boilerplate wall days, the big wreck that you always see with Greg Sachs and Lake Speed, where Sachs's car is about 5 feet off the ground with most of the sheet metal off of the thing. The track has a long history of that corner being treacherous. I still think turn 2 has had an even more deserved reputation, but this was definitely the weekend of turn 1 being the issue. And that ultimately got Yaley back into contention and to a point where he was in the top 10 with fuel strategy at one point. Looking at the final results, he ended up dropping back to the 26th spot there at the finish. But one spot in front of him, Cole Custer there, his teammate at Rick Ware Racing. So again, I know there's a lot of discussion with Justin Haley's planned move to Rick Ware Racing, which we'll get to here in the show as well. But with this performance today, I think that's definitely another positive indicator. I think Yaley probably should just keep running that paint scheme. He seems to do particularly well whenever he runs that one. So that was definitely another part of the story. But the other reason that brought Yaley back out of last place, of course, was one of the big tangles that happened in the corner there was between Joey Logano and Daniel Suarez, both of them collected by Michael McDowell. It seemed like McDowell made some contact with Logano that got him turned around. And then McDowell made a pretty hard cut to the left there that kind of squeezed the number 99 car into Bubba Wallace's path. And then Suarez ends up hitting the outside wall pretty hard. Had a really interesting battle there at that point between both these different drivers. They were going to be losing multiple laps. Suarez's team got him back out there to try to complete one more lap to get him ahead of Logano. Logano was towed back to the pit road there with the front splitter ground off and the left front tire coming apart at the same time. Seems like that's another aspect of bringing these cars back to pit road that probably needs to be re-examined. Either get rollers underneath the front wheels or just literally change the wheels themselves. Probably rollers would probably be a better option given the fact that these cars are so completely sucked to the ground to the point that they now have those diffusers and everything underneath them. But regardless, he had a little bit of a pit road battle. Suarez pulls into the garage area because he has an oil leak that the team can't find. Logano gets back out on track, passes Suarez, puts him back in last place. And although it looks like Logano is probably only going to do 1 or 2 laps and then pull into the garage area, you keep having more incidents in turn 1. So he ends up completing 11 more laps than Suarez, but does not gain any more spots. And Logano ends up your 35th place finisher. And so a bit of an interesting last place battle. Pocono has pretty good ones here. It's going to have to be a track I'll have to cover one of these days. This is the same one that had that first lap wreck between Matt DiBenedetto and Eric Almirola, where it kind of came down to which of them was going to be in last place and who was last across the stripe versus first to the garage area and so forth. But another interesting aspect to that. Austin Dillon with a scary accident after coming back from his early spin. He had rallied up to the 11th spot, was another driver that was kind of working his way back into contention. Unfortunately, has a tangle with Tyler Reddick. It looked like he crowded him pretty hard on the entrance of turn 1, but very hard hit to the passenger side of the car, but glad to see him get out of the car and well enough to not only get out of the car, but of course throw his helmet at Reddick as he came right by. So very much a throwback race, kind of getting shades of 1993 here a little bit, or even maybe you don't have to go that far back. I guess you could talk about Stewart in 2012 at Bristol, but very much aspects of that. Another scary accident there was Justin Haley's in turn 2. This one here ground against the outside wall and then slid across. It looked like about 4 lanes of traffic there before he pounded the outside wall. Good to see him get out under his own power. So some pretty hard hits that kind of started and stopped the action here. Really throughout. We saw a little bit of strategy, but a lot of that blown up by these cautions. And ultimately, a race that did finish under caution with Ryan Preece spinning and stalling his car off of turn 2. Looked like he was going to keep going. For once, I'm going to agree with the broadcast here. I mean, really, I think it was interesting that NASCAR waited on the caution, probably thought he was going to restart again. It still makes me wonder how much, the tail is wagging the dog here. I don't know how much NASCAR listens to the broadcast in terms of throwing a caution or not, or if it's from their own spotters that are watching what's happening. It seemed like the broadcast was indicating that he was rolling, and then the caution didn't come out. And then when they showed the car again, basically the caution came out at that point. As much as I'm not a fan of last lap cautions, really in this case here, yeah, you got a car that's sitting on the inside. People are going to be going by it at speed. That's the very definition of a kind of an incident that you want to avoid in one of these, because it's going to be separating the race leaders from the finish line. And these races are all about the last lap. And, you got everybody, not just the leaders themselves, but everybody else further back in the pack could be just as well racing for position in that situation. If he had had another situation where he pulled the car behind the wall, or if he was further off the racing surface and on the apron, you probably could have got away with having the race finish under green. But at that point there, Hamlin had such a big lead over Reddick that it probably wasn't going to change the outcome. And I'm sure that probably factored into their decision there at the same time. But this brings us full circle back to the race winner again. I don't want to dismiss the Hamlin situation and not go into it more in depth. I kind of wanted to wait and see some of the responses here to kind of get that coming up here. Let's see here. Take back the yellow before the white flag, according to a person behind the flag stag that threw the yellow and then they pulled it back. Okay, I'm not aware of that. That would be interesting to see. But yeah, it's definitely kind of a crazy, just a crazy set of circumstances here. And yeah, I don't blame Larson at all for being furious about this. Jimmy Johnson in 2017. Nathan, yeah, your point too there on the serious wrecks that happened, especially in turn 1, and especially with possible career-altering circumstances. Of course, you talk about Kurt Busch's accident, but that was over in turn 3. It's a different one of those stories. So, yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah, TDC B more. Yeah, I mean, you got a good point too. I mean, Larson's had a lot of situations where he's crowded drivers at the same time. I mean, yeah, this could be a situation. You can look at the other direction where you have drivers that are aggressive. I know a lot of Chase Elliott fans have been pretty outspoken for how Larson raced him last year at Fontana and Watkins Glen and so forth. And perhaps this is the situation where if the win is going to be settled between these two drivers, it's just going to get particularly heated. I always think that, especially after, it's not even really just unique to Hamlin. I think Bubba Wallace seems to race Kyle Larson pretty hard, not just thinking about the Las Vegas wreck from last year, but when it came down to them being first and second in the All-Star race this year. I think part of Bubba's great run he had in that race was the motivation to try to track down the 5. Unfortunately, didn't work out that way. I think you just got you have a couple drivers here that I guess are friends, at least from what we're told in the broadcast here. I have to say, I'm kind of dancing around this, but I guess I'm gonna have to jump into this here. I think it was a little. I found it a little distasteful how they were interviewing Larson in this one. They really seemed like they were really trying to gin him up and have a situation where there's going to be a confrontation. You have Hamlin pulls off the victory and, somebody throws a bottle on the track and, all that happens. And then there's a commercial break and you come back and then they got the interview with Larson. I thought it was kind of crossing the line a little bit. I think sometimes some of the reporting in the moment is, it's not the best question to ask, or some questions are just kind of best left unasked. There was a little bit of this earlier where Kevin Harvick is trying to go for the win and they're talking to his crew chief. They're saying, oh, what would a win mean? It's like, well, what do you think win would mean? Of course, it would be Harvick getting into the playoffs and he'd have a chance to win the championship in his retirement season. I thought that was not really the question to ask in a moment where he's not even leading or, really even on the front row. It's like, why even do that? And then the thing with Larson's interview, they keep saying, oh, you're friends. It's like, oh, well, is this, it's like, are you still friends and doing all this? It's like I get it. You want the guy to say the thing. You want the guy to, have you want to turn this into wrestling and have a moment where the guy is going to just pop off and just say something completely outrageous. I'm sure there's already going to be people calling the FCC about him, saying the S word on TV. But it's like, come on. I mean, does everything have to be manufactured? Can we just not have a natural dispute between drivers? If they're going to fight, they're going to fight. If they're not going to fight, they're not going to. Clearly these are the only storylines that really the modern broadcast really, care to pay any attention to. Somebody has like a series of bad races or somebody is having a good race. We'll get to that maybe. But if, some drivers have been in wrecks or somebody had a really big wreck, we'll follow up on that story. We'll run that to ground and play the clip every year. That's what it is. And I'm not saying that that's not interesting. Because the sport's based on that. You think about, Donnie and Kale and the 79 500. I mean, I'm not going to say, we shouldn't be interested in that at all. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying everything doesn't have to be that. There was so much stuff that happened in this race beyond that too. And if Larson's just like, I'm not happy about it. I'm going to focus on running my sprint car. That may just be the end of the story, folks. And then we just move from there. I mean, heck, Larson swiped at Hamlin's car on the track there after the incident at turn 1. I think, you got plenty of ammunition you need to promote Richmond and the races going forward from there. So we'll see. And that's another track that Denny Hamlin is probably expected to be very good at with his history there and it being his home track. So I think really at that point, you can just start hyping things up for that instead. But I don't know. I think it was not, it's just a messy situation. And the title, of course, here on the screen here is meant to be ironic. Like, look, obviously, it's just amazing to be how many boos there were at the finish of this one. I mean, there was a lot when he and Larson had the battle at Kansas. And I think they're both justified. They both are. I mean, I think at Kansas, it was disappointing because they were running so close to the edge and there was this great, battle between the two of them. They're both inches from the wall and they're both very evenly matched and have very evenly matched cars. It was kind of anticlimactic to just have them just get turned at the last second there and, then pulls off the victory and nobody's anywhere near, anywhere close to him. At last lap, anything goes, I guess, but it's a little disappointing. And then you have in this race here, Larson again is rallying back from all these issues. And Denny Hamlin is, he's kind of been up there more or less the entire day, but he's coughing up spots on all these restarts. So he keeps dropping back. You'd like to have them settle the race between themselves. Maybe a bit closer to what we saw in the Truck Series race yesterday, where Kyle Busch is racing Corey Heim. It doesn't play out that way. And unfortunately, I guess this is the textbook maneuver for Hamlin coming off turn 1. It's kind of interesting too. If you look at the finish of that too, it almost didn't work for Denny Hamlin this time. Denny comes up the track and chases Larson into the wall. And at the same time, you got Martin Truex and Kevin Harvick behind him, and they cut down to the inside immediately because they know they're losing momentum. And both of them had to completely come off the wall to block both of those cars. It could have very easily been at least a 3-wide situation into turn 2. Maybe Harvick gets pinned behind Larson at that point. And then who knows what would happen there. Or I guess Harvick probably would have been pinned behind Hamlin because he was further down if Truex got to the inside of Hamlin. But again, it just wasn't meant to be in this circumstance here. So, it's a crazy situation. I mean, no doubt we're going to hear a lot of follow-up on this week. Again, certainly from Denny's podcast and certainly from any hype that's going to be produced for Richmond next week. I thought it was funny that Larson couldn't remember what the next race was, too. I couldn't either. I thought next week was Indy. Richmond for next week and Road America for the Xfinity Series. And we'll talk a bit about that on the show here tonight, too. But, it was it half booze? I don't know. I couldn't tell. It sounded like it was like 90% booze. It sounded pretty overwhelming. I'm glad, and it was perfect timing because NBC really ramped up playing much more of the crowd noise in the race itself, or at least seemed to. I'm going to hope that it wasn't sweetened or they were using anything pre-recorded. It sounded pretty genuine because they did a lot of, they had a massive crowd there. I hear the infield parties there at Pocono rival Talladega's, and this weekend's probably did pretty well. Yeah, it's a different situation there. Oh yeah, Beast of Metal, good point. Yeah, FCC probably doesn't apply on USA, but yeah, all the more. I mean, I don't care about stuff like that, but there's always, these days now, you always got somebody that's going to care about something stupid like that. But, again, you won't, I think for the sake of the sport, going back to Kyle Larson and his comments here, you want to have the genuine reaction to it. And, if he doesn't want to say a whole lot about it, they're just not going to. And Cliff Daniels talking about what Hamlin's crew was saying on the radio after the incident. I got to admit, I'm curious about what that is too. I'm sure we all are. I don't know I wasn't listening to the 11's channel at the end, so I didn't pick up any of that. I guess that'll be something else to figure out here. Yeah, and again, I'm not crazy about, and again, it goes hand in hand with talking about the broadcast in general. It's still, I can't help but feel that the production of NBC and USA is so much better than Fox. I feel like I really had the tools with which I could understand what was happening throughout the field, and that when an incident happened or was about to happen, the camera usually caught it, and there wasn't too many trick shots or anything that was kind of hiding stuff. There was some stuff that could be better, but I like that we had some infield cameras and some, more distant shots and stuff like that. You could see a lot of cars in the shot. There's especially some great shots off of turn one, which I guess has been used for a while. I guess even Fox used it. But you could actually see almost the entire field coming off the corner, which I thought was pretty cool. The only problem is that these cars have the numbers moved forward, so you can't see them from the 3/4 view. And so many of these teams ran different paint schemes, so you didn't know who was who. That's, those are separate issues not having to do with the broadcast. But, the situation there on that with Rick Allen there at the end of it, somebody throws a bottle on the track. Now, first of all, you don't throw stuff on the track. I don't care how angry you are. I've been angry at plenty of racetracks, and you want to throw the boos. If you want to boo the guy, give the thumbs down and all that, flip him off. That's fine, but you don't want to throw stuff on the track, even if the race is over with. That's just dangerous. It could be dangerous for the other people that are working in the infield there. If you got camera guys coming out, track officials in the stands and all that, you don't want to do that. That was a big thing when I was a younger fan. They used to have people that were throwing stuff on the track because a lot of those races were ending under caution unnecessarily. And, I was just as frustrated as anybody else. But the scale of it, you think of 2002 at Daytona or 2004 at Talladega, it was just getting out of hand. Junior even had to step in on that. On that subject there too. And it looks like it was just one bottle and didn't affect anybody, but you don't want to set a precedent that that's okay. Now the issue I had with Rick Allen is at the moment there, he just can't bring himself to say that without, doing it in that halting kind of disinterested voice. Just say it commonly. Look, you don't want to throw stuff on the track. Think about Bob Jenkins did this in 1994 at Talladega. Somebody threw a piece of debris on the track in the early laps. Jeff Bodine ran it over, cut a tire, and actually had a pretty serious accident. Yes, this was during the tire wars with Hoosier, but it was not a tire failure because of the tire. It was a tire failure because it ran over a piece of debris there. You don't throw stuff on the track. You just don't do it. First of all, a lot of tracks, have rules against it, and they'll find out and they'll kick you out. You don't want to be in a situation where you're kicked out of a racetrack there at all. So there's those situations. But yeah, it's even as unpopular as a win can be, people have plenty of outlets, for expressing their displeasure. I'm sure there's no doubt at the moment that you're watching this, there's going to be a lot of videos of people posting rants against Denny Hamlin or in support of Larson, or perhaps even the other direction. You never know. But that'll be something that's going to be the interesting aspect going forward here too. So yeah, I definitely want to kind of make a point on that there too. But yeah, again, the NBC and USA broadcast, I mean, I think the production is pretty good. It's pretty good. I feel like I'm able to catch what's happening. I feel like we're not missing too many things, but there's just still that disconnect with the booth, with the people in the booth, and they're starting to work with it. They're starting to kind of make it a little better. I liked in the pre-race where Jeff Burton did the lead in and talking about Kevin Harvick and him being 47 years old and trying to win and get into the playoffs, and they had these shots of his car. That was perfect. That was match for match what ESPN used to do with multiple drivers back in the late 90s. And then you think back to, I mean, and it's a nice, you know, they haven't been the only ones to do it. We see a bit more of it in the Xfinity Series. Parker Kligerman's very good at this. You know, actually, well, before he got his full-time ride, but then, you know, featuring other drivers on pit road. You know, other pit reporters have kind of started to do that a little bit in the Xfinity Series. And not so much in Truck Series, because unfortunately that just hasn't really worked out well. Usually they're just standing on pit road, they're nowhere near the truck, and you just don't really have very good context for what's happening. But I like that NBC is starting to experiment with that. I like that they're bringing in the crowd noise. I like that they're trying this stuff, but they still seem so uncomfortable doing it. So I don't know who's coaching them or if they're just playing this by ear, but I'm really getting the sense that they're not watching old footage and seeing how people used to do it. I think that's the most instructive way to do it. You know, have some stats out there, have some information you could say about this driver, and just do a lead in. Like, say you want to talk about this guy, you want to talk about that guy. That would be good. You know, and again, I don't want to be ignorant of what good has come out of a lot of these broadcasts lately, because again, I think way back at Nashville, we say way back, it's probably just a few weeks ago still. But back there, when they had the thing where, you know, Dale Jr. and Jeff Burton are on pit road and you got the cars with the engines fired and they're talking over them. That was great. And I liked the stuff that Jr. did this weekend in the flag stand. I mean, clearly he has a very deep passion for standing in the flag stand as long as he can to see the first couple laps of the cars coming by. And, you know, introducing even the person waving the flag and talking about, you know, how people are radioing in to sync things up with the flyover. That was fantastic. I would love way more of that. I want everyone else in the booth to be doing that. I want everyone to be doing that. I want people just bringing their A game. Junior is, I mean, obviously Junior is I think adds the most star power to this broadcast, and he's probably the least likely to be swapped out with anybody else, as Mike Joy very clearly described before. But it just, everybody else needs to kind of be at that level. And I think if they do that, I think we'll get a bit closer. You know, I like that Steve Letart's starting to do more with kind of the technical side of it and, you know, doing the breakdowns about the crushability of the cars. That was very good. You know, getting closer to kind of a Larry McReynolds, Tim Brewer aspect of it there. So, you know, again, there's positive aspects of it, but it's just not there yet. They still got to kind of they need to get to the same level as the production, because the production's really good, but, you know, the play-by-play and like understanding what's happening, like, you know, understanding what was happening, even when Logano and Suarez were on pit road, they didn't fully grasp what was happening with both of them, like who was on the clock and who wasn't. And, you know, if somebody was going to pass somebody else for position, like with the stats in front of you, you could figure that out. But it seemed like they were kind of caught off guard by that. Or tracking something like Yaley, where he made up those laps and got back into the race. That would at least been follow-up from an earlier incident. You know, when they showed him in the top 10, it was almost like, you know, it's like, oh, where'd he come from? Like they hadn't talked about him all day. So that's kind of the issue there. And, you know, they're definitely closer to where they need to be than Fox is. But again, they're not entirely in sync. And that's what still kind of just kind of irks me a little bit there. And, you know, I know people are going to think I'm being overly negative, overly critical on this. But that's because I know they have it in them. I know they can get there. You know, they just got to push them just that little bit. And then they'll probably be pretty good. You know, nothing will be as good as Bob Jenkins and Benny Parsons and all that. I think it's unrealistic to expect that these days. It would be great, you know, if you have a group that you try, you know, maybe they'll one day achieve that. As to if that's going to happen in this group, you know, I'm not sure. But it doesn't have to be that good. It can be perfectly solid, like, you know, what TNN or CBS did. You know, so we'll see. That'll be another part to look at there too. Yeah, Truex with the interstate battery scheme kept screwing me up. Yeah, exactly that too. So yeah. Oh, Laser Bro, did I miss your? Did I read your typo instead of your other posts? I'm not sure if I got that one at the same time. Yeah. So we'll see. Yeah, if Hamlin's a conventional pick, yeah. Given his Pocono history, yeah, that's certainly less surprising there. Kyle Larson back to 20th there at the finish. 11.098 seconds back of the lead. Right behind McDowell, ahead of Kyle Busch. Definitely a big drop off there. If you look at some of the other cars behind him there, Alex Bowman, after he spun in turn 3, was 24th. You got Todd Yoland finishing 15th after starting last. I mean, yeah, definitely some comers and goers throughout the field there. I like that they talked about Eric Almirola a little bit. Like, he seemed to really kind of struggle at the beginning. I saw he was back there with some of the guys that were struggling, but coming back to finish 12th. That was a decent rally for him there at the same time. But, yeah, again, I got to say, my phone was buzzing here, too. I don't know if Last Bro was messaging me here. We'll see if I get his thoughts on that. Oh, no, he hasn't seen the finish yet. He's probably not watching this show either. But, yeah, he says he paused with 50 to go. I switched off at the... Oh, yeah, he's still driving on the way back. Again, as I mentioned there a little bit in the show, yeah, Last Bro was at New Hampshire last week. They've been... he and my father have been kind of working their way back over here, back to LASCAR headquarters, expecting them either later tonight or first part of tomorrow. But yeah, no, he hasn't seen the last 50 laps. Well, I'm not going to, okay, I won't spoil it for you. Hopefully he's not watching this. He usually doesn't. So, but yeah, that'll be the case there. So that will be an interesting conversation. One of these days, yeah. He doesn't really like getting on the show here, so I otherwise we do a live reaction, but I don't think that'll be the way to do that at the same time. So, but yeah, that's again, I think overall, pretty crazy Pocono race. I mean, this is a race that usually has situations where you have long green flag runs. You'll have like some hard hits again when the mechanical equipment wears out, just because the runs are so long and the equipment just gets, such high demands placed on it here. But this one here, it really felt like a game of red light, green light. It felt like the longest run was maybe only like 20 laps. Probably was longer than that, but at least it gave that impression of it, especially with the race scale back to 400 miles instead of 500 in recent years here. But again, great last place battle here. I only touched on the Suarez last place finish. As I mentioned earlier, this is the first last place run for the number 99 at Pocono. The first that Suarez had this year, only the third of his Cup career, and only his second with Trackhouse. The other one was with Stewart Haas Racing at Daytona, I believe in 2018, I want to say, if I remember it correctly. But yeah, Suarez, very rare to see him finish in last place. Certainly frustrated with the situation that happened there. And Joey Logano avoiding another last place run, which would have actually put him in pretty good shape for the LASCAR lead. Actually, I'm looking at the standings here. That I believe that would have actually given him the lead, if I remember correctly. Let me pull that back up. No, well, let's see. No, it would have tied him with Ty Dillon for the most last place runs with his third of the season. But he would have been behind on bottom fives with 7-3 to Ty Dillon. So Ty Dillon would have still been the leader. But it would have certainly tightened things up if Logano was last again today. And despite how fast his car was at the beginning and pretty easily winning stage one, that almost happened. It almost did. That's why he still got to run these races. But yeah, Suarez finishing last this time around. First time since Vegas last year. When he also had a situation where he had a wreck on the front straightaway and had some flat tires. Actually, I guess his incident was closer to Logano's, where the car got beached basically on flat tires, and that wouldn't be a situation that he could keep running in. So, oh yeah, we haven't even talked about, I guess, what was it? The 50th Cup win for Hamlin, and what was it? What win was it for Toyota? I was just like 100th or 600th or something like that. It was a pretty good amount. Yeah. Alrighty. Well, we'll get into the Xfinity and Truck Series portion here too. Yeah, sometimes the last happens. Exactly. Yeah. That's not really a race you want to win. Exactly, Turbo 14. Exactly. Yeah, this could have been pretty crazy. Oh, I didn't get your Beast of Metal. Thank you for the super chat here as well. Let me jump into yours as well while we're still on the topic of the Cup race, because it looks like you have a Cup statement here. All I'll say regarding Hamlin is a quote from Metalocalypse's Vater Orlog, played by Malcolm McDowell. It's not about right or wrong. At this point, it simply is. Could apply to Cup invaders, too. Yeah, no, it's a valid point. It simply is. I think I lost count of how many times Larson was saying it is what it is on pit road there. But yeah, again, I don't blame him for being upset. I don't blame Larson fans for being upset. And I don't blame Hamlin fans for being indignant about it either. I think both of them, again, are just, I keep having in my mind pop up that phrase, a couple competitive spirits that bring you conflict, as Dr. Jerry Punch said in Days of Thunder when he was describing the expansion of Cole Trickle, the Tim Dalen team, to have both Cole Trickle and Russ Wheeler there on there. He says, oh, these two competitive spirits, bring you conflict. And it's like, yeah, that's all I can think of. I think he just got two drivers that wanted as badly, Hamlin trying to win his first championship, and Larson trying to win his second. And, is this going to be a story, going the rest of the year? I mean, when NBC was doing, I think NBC did the poll where they were asking, who your championship for was. When I got down to the fourth pick, I picked Larson, but I was like, well, I've kind of second guessed myself. And I'm like, well, okay, I kind of forgot about Kyle Busch in the equation. I think, well, is he going to maybe make it in there? But I still stuck with Larson. And, again, and maybe this is why. Maybe it's because we're going to still have some more battles between these two guys down the stretch. And, who knows how they shake out. The two basically settled the Southern 500 between each other not too long ago. We got another Kansas race, so we got to return to the track they battled in that. You never know. But that'll be another one for another day. Going to the Xfinity Series race, congratulations to Austin Hill for pulling off the win. I'll tell you what, that guy is got horseshoes in both pockets. He's just absolutely figured out what he needs to do there in that 21 car. It's no longer just the super speedways anymore. If he's able to pull off places like this to win at Pocono, and yeah, he didn't have the best car all day, but he capitalized when the best car screwed up, and that's what you sometimes have to do. Josh Berry had that race put away. He was absolutely crushing everybody out there. It seemed like if he wasn't leading, he was able to get the lead back very easily. But two consecutive terrible mistakes on the last restart there to overdrive the first corner and let Hill get by him, and then to just zig when Sam Mayer zagged. And I think it was a mistake. I think I think both of them in their post-race interviews seemed to indicate this. It was just bad timing. It was terrible timing, and ultimately took both of them out of contention. Mayer still gets second spot, but pretty distant behind Austin Hill there. And Josh Berry, meanwhile, ends up with his car back in the 24th spot there. Not quite as bad of a situation as Justin Allgaier, though. Allgaier's car also knocked to pieces there back in the 23rd spot, the finish of that race. Very physical finish. This one kind of was probably what people were expecting after the end of this Cup Series race there today. Although it seemed like Hamlin had the win pretty well in hand, even coming to the white flag. I think whether or not we had, now if we had another restart, would that have changed something? I mean, by that point, Larson was pretty far back in the pack. I don't think that would have changed anything. Again, who's to say? I don't know if Reddick seemed to be kind of in the middle of most of the, at least a couple incidents in this race, but was closing at just the right time. Truex seemed like he had a really good car, especially on fresh tires. Could have gone for his second straight win. Again, it's hard to say what would have happened if they did a green-white checker. I'm kind of glad they didn't, and it just finished within regulation. Because, then you get something chaotic, kind of like the Xfinity race finish was. So, whatever your preference is, you kind of got what you wanted from a lot of these here. Austin Hill wins over Sam Mayer, Chase Elliott, Riley Herbst, and Daniel Hemrick in your top five. Sammy Smith in the 6th spot followed by Brandon Jones, Brett Moffitt, Parker Kligerman, and Daniel Suarez, who ran double duty this weekend. Suarez was 10th in the Xfinity Series race driving for Colleague Racing this week. Your last place finisher in this one was Sage Karam. Karam took over last place in the very early laps when the car fell off the pace. Apparently the car was stuck in third gear. So the hashtag that I had for the article was what gear for, and that was very much the situation that was happening. He kept trying to shift the thing into fourth gear, and it would physically click into gear, but you wouldn't actually have the sensation of the car shifting into gear. So he was going much slower than the cars around him, and that ended up being kind of the situation that left him at the back of the pack. Ultimately was towed behind the wall. The Alpha Prime team spent almost the entire race distance trying to get that car back out there, very much like they did with Raja Karuth last week at Loudon, which was also with the 44 car. But unfortunately, they just never got back out there. Terrible break for Karam. His first last place run of this season, not his first of his career. I believe he was last at Atlanta last year. But an unfortunate deal there. I don't know what is going on over at Tommy Joe Martin's team. I hate it for those guys. I know a lot of people that work there, including Tommy, and they're a good group. I don't know if it's just a situation with the three cars out there, or if they're just in a bad stretch here. But these mechanical issues are just galling. I mean, if it's and then the handling issues that Greg Van Alst had at Atlanta, was that just inexperience, or was that something with the car? It's hard to say. But these last 3 weeks in particular, on top of the extra expense of having to spend the extra day in Chicago when they didn't run the race and they had to basically just pack up and head home, just a tough deal for them there. So hopefully things turn around for them in Richmond, which is a tough track. Richmond, I think, is one of the most unforgiving tracks if you're having a bad streak of runs or something like that, because you'll just get run over and lose multiple laps, much like Joe Graff did when he drove for the Gibbs team earlier this year. So hopefully things turn around. But unfortunately, a third straight last place finish for Alpha Prime Racing. The second, I believe, no, not the second in a row, but the second in 3 races for Alpha Prime's number 44 entry. But Karam, your last place finisher. 37th place ended up changing hands several times while he was in the garage area. It ultimately went to Corey Heim with suspension issues. Josh Williams in 36th went behind the wall with a brake issue, came back out about 10 laps down, and actually I think he gained one of them back in the process there, either a wave around or a lucky dog there towards the end. But finished in the 36th spot. Parker Retzlaff and Connor Mosack rounding out the bottom 5. Mosack this week driving the Joe Gibbs number 19 that Graff had driven previously. But an unfortunate deal for those teams. But crazy finish. I mean, yeah, it definitely had, it was like a whole combination of Kyle Larson's flat tire in, 2020 or 2021, versus the Jeremy Mayfield bumping somebody out of the way versus everything else. Like, it was just crazy. But, tough break for Josh Berry. It's hard to think. The next time Berry's going to be attempting a race at Pocono, he'll be driving Kevin Harvick's car in the Cup Series. So we'll see how that shakes out. But, of course, you got the rest of this season to figure out what's going to be happening here. Ryan Sieg gets spun out towards the end of the race. That was another tough break. I mean, I mentioned this on Twitter. I mean, how many times has Ryan Sieg found himself in the top 5 in the late stages of a race at various tracks, various sizes, and then gets spun out like on a green-white checker and ends up finishing like 20th, and then, it's just on to the next week. I think, it's a heartbreaker. I like being able to talk with the Sieg family, what we did back at Sears Point earlier this year. I hate to see them struggle as much as they do, but the pursuit of that first victory continues on at least for another week. We'll see. It's almost a regular feature on this show, it kind of feels like at that point. But somebody who did have finally a stroke of good luck in this race, Anthony Alfredo, Tony Sauce with a 13th place finish. His best run of the season. First time that he's, finished better than 21st or 24th in the last 3 or 4 races. Just so much of a much needed shot in the arm. Of course, Sears Point, he had that hung throttle issue in turn 1 with the very scary accident that he had out there. Luckily, he was able to hop out of that car and get in the backup. But just a another difficult, They're a difficult stretch there for the number 78 team, the BJ McLeod effort, but glad they could get a good run. I mean, it seems like it's been forever since that race at Phoenix back in the spring where he was charging through the field there and gaining a couple spots and getting a top 15 out of it. So hopefully that's something they can parlay into some good runs going forward from there. Also seeing Ryan Ellis and Jeffrey Earnhardt getting the Alpha Prime's other two cars into the top 20 was something that was definitely needed there at the same time. So good for them at the same time, too. This kind of leads us back over into the Truck Series race. And Kyle Busch with his small team that pulled off the victory. Again, I'll give Kyle the benefit of the doubt. And also, before we go and do anything further down that road, I need to. Did we ever get other information on what the family emergency was with the Bushes yesterday? Because there was a situation there with them, that they had to cancel a race that night. I didn't see anything else on social media today, so I don't know what else was. I don't know what else happened on that. So hopefully it was something that wasn't, was important, but not, not anything more serious than that too. Didn't travel. I was good with Kyle Busch, and he will race the Cup race tomorrow. Okay, yeah. So seeing the Bob Pockris post here, while they didn't travel to GVAT to race tonight, been told all is good with Kyle Busch, and he will race the Cup race tomorrow. Nothing too serious, just kept them from going tonight. So that's good to know. So good to know everything's good. I don't want anybody having any kind of, serious situation. And I definitely wanted to make sure that wasn't something to, go into this before I elaborate more on this statement. So since everything's cool with Kyle Busch and all that, and that's good to hear, now I will unload on this more. Yes, the small team statement that Kyle Busch made. He gets the 100th win for Kyle Busch Motorsports. And in his post-race interview, he says that, at some point, that the team, either he said that it was a small team or that, that they were a small team, then they grew into a better program and all that. And I'm like, I don't know. No, I didn't. I'm not sure if that's a banner that has ever been true in Kyle Busch's program. If they got trucks from Roush Racing and they got the vestiges of Express Motorsports, which was the 2003 Truck Series champions, if they got that equipment by 2010 or 2005 or whenever that worked into there, and then built this program up, they weren't really starting from zero, I would say. Now, there's other teams that do start up from acquired equipment from other programs. You think of Spire Motorsports with what was left from Furniture Row Racing and, them being a champion in their own right. But again, there's a team that's struggling, but are they like the smallest team out there compared to like a Rick Ware or a Live Fast Racing team, or the many others have been squeezed out? Yeah, that's where I'm not sure. It just seemed like a very strange thing for him to say in the moment where you're celebrating your team's 100th win, where you just breezed by Corey Heim like he's standing still on the back straightaway there. And it was just kind of like, well, okay, that's over. And I don't know, it was bizarre. It just seemed like a strange thing. I think one of the last things I would ever call Kyle Busch Motorsports, probably in any phase of its ever existence, would be a small team, especially when he goes in there and he just outclasses the field, much like he did in this race, that he just can kind of blow the doors off everybody and just pull off one of these victories. I thought it was a strange thing to credit his team with. I mean, even if they were understaffed, even if he said they were, maybe for one afternoon they were a small team when they were getting the pieces together. I don't know. And maybe I'm making too much out of this, but my jaw hit the floor when I heard that. I was like, are you kidding me? Like you don't, that's always kind of a problem with me with a lot of these top drivers. When you're one of the guys that you can win basically anywhere in the Cup Series on a perfect day, when you have a good car and all that. It seems like the culture among the top teams is so far from the small teams. And I hope that the small teams are still there to kind of keep them humble a little bit. And, because every once in a while they pull off a victory or they get a good run out there. I think the day when it's just the big teams out there is probably the day I'm going to be less interested, especially in the Cup Series. The Cup Series is getting already getting dangerously close to that these days with the charter system being what it is and really restricting how many teams are out there. And they're so evenly matched that, it's really a stretch when a guy, when you have somebody like even the Wood brothers running well. And even though the Wood brothers have technical alliances and everything, and they're not, the same as they once were too. The culture among the big name drivers and the top teams is always more like, everything else is just kind of everything else. Like it's just so far beneath them that, that it's just not the same. The Kyle Busch Motorsports struggling is not the same thing as FDNY racing struggling. It's not a matter of, if this team's even going to exist, if they can get a sponsor that's going to get any visibility. It's like, oh, we finished second, or, oh, we finished fifth, or, oh, we only, we're only running part-time, but we're winning 3 out of 5 races. Like, I'm sorry, that's to the word small team shouldn't even be in the same galaxy as Kyle Busch Motorsports. And that's what it was just so absurd to me. Celebrate you have 100 wins. Just I would have been less upset if he just flexed on him and said, "Look, we're just the best team out here, and everybody else, they're nothing, and we're the best, and these guys are all amateurs, and these teams are terrible." I think that would have been less offensive than just saying, "Oh, we were a small team, and we had to work and do this, and then we had to, we just got this big Toyota contract, and then they were really big, and now we're back to Chevrolet, and we haven't missed a step at all." Like, it's not like they were losing all the other races they had this year after he switched from Toyota. They're just as good as they've ever been. That was absurd. So now I will point this out with another caveat though. So, and one of my writers, Ben Schneider, is actually working on something very interesting with this too. There was the statement earlier this week about, Kyle Busch thinking about how he would wrap up his career if everything could work out the way that he wanted. And I'm paraphrasing here, but what I recall was that he would step away from the Cup Series, that he'd run full-time in his own truck, and either race against his son, or his son would take over, or something of that, but try to get a Truck Series championship, so he has a championship in all 3 series. Now, with everything that I've said to this point, and how, they got 100 wins and the small team aspect and all that. Do I have anything against that? No, not a thing. It would probably suck for that season for everyone else, because he probably would win, probably 70% of the races that year. But you know what? If that's the way he wants to go out, if that's it, and then he just wraps up and maybe he goes and he tries another challenge, whether that's IndyCar or Formula One, who am I to step in front of that? Especially if it's something that he wants to do with his son and all that. That's a whole different galaxy here. I don't think that's what we've been having to this point, though. It's different. And it would be interesting to see. I mean, there's so many drivers that have come close to winning championships in all 3 series. You think of Greg Biffle and how good he was in 2005. After being a Truck Series champion and winning an Xfinity Series championship, how good he could have been in getting a Cup Series trophy there for Jack Roush during a time where Roush was really that good. Oh gosh, we got a post-race altercation between Priest and LaJoie. Oh, that'd be interesting. Imagine if Hamlin gets disqualified. Yeah, who knows? So yeah, but. Yeah, that's kind of the thing on that. So, and I don't want to steal a march on Ben here, because I know he's working on a piece on this to kind of go more in depth into it. But I still need to review that as well. But that'll be coming up here this week to kind of see what's going on there. But yeah, I mean, if Kyle Busch wants to do that, and then that's the end of it, fine. I still maintain that the Cup guys in the lower series may continue to be an issue, because it's never been a Kyle Busch problem. It's always a Cup guys and lower series problem. And this kind of goes into what I was talking about during the Xfinity Series race yesterday about the number 17 car out there that Chase Elliott drove, and truly did not win the race in the Xfinity race, but was running it out there, and did admit in his interview that it did nothing at all to help him prepare for Sunday's race, that the cars are just so different. To have the number 17 car out there, This is a very different deal there from the Kyle Busch Motorsports deal. So you have a Hendrick Motorsports entry. And yes, that paint scheme, that blue and white car, we're seeing more of it now than ever because, of course, it's Kyle Larson's primary scheme with the Hendrick Cars logo. And we've even seen it on a JR Motorsports cars before, too, with the number 88 team. But I would still argue that there's something very different about running that number 17 on it. And while I appreciate that when they do score one of their kind of easy victories in that car, that they recognize the legacy of Ricky Hendrick, I think, and I said this the other day, and I stand by it, I think that the best way to honor Ricky Hendrick is to have that ride be available to put other young drivers in there to give them a shot at making a name for themselves and getting their first win. Ricky Hendrick ran that number when he won his first Truck Series race. What was it? At Kansas in 2001. He won that race back then. He also ran it in ARCA. It's much more identified. It's not just the paint scheme. It's the paint scheme and the number. Brian Vickers ran that paint scheme, and he won the Busch Championship, too. And Vickers was a person that was brought on there by Ricky Hendrick, and he was such a big part of that team. So I think if Hendrick has to have an Xfinity team out there, and I don't necessarily think they really need to, but if they're going to do that, it should be to the effect of helping other drivers work their way up in the sport. And I'm not talking about charity or anything like that. It's just a thing that's available for, say, the Josh Berrys of the country. You know, like people that are out there that are just not getting a shot in NASCAR, but, you know, if they, you know, maybe you're getting an interest with this team. And I know it was argued that maybe this is something that's further down the line that Hendrick's working on. What more do they need to work on? The team is there. It's established. It's apparently got enough backing that they're able to run multiple races in it. It's won before. What more do they need to do? And it doesn't even need to be a full-time entry. It can just be a one-off thing. Make it like, you know, some kind of program where you can bring in different people on there. Are you saying the sponsor's not happy? The sponsor is Hendrick. Who do you have to get approval from? I mean, I don't see why this is difficult. My only conclusion can be is that they haven't thought about that, or they haven't thought about it enough, or they just think it's just easy money to put a cup guy in there. You know, I think that would be so much better, and I think it would be so much more meaningful too, especially since Ricky Hendrick was involved in driver development at Hendrick. I think that would be so much better. And yeah, maybe it does turn into a full-time team, and then it becomes a full-time entry for this guy. And then maybe, you know, after that guy graduates to Cup, then it's open for somebody else. You know, we get something closer to when Mark Martin stopped bushwhacking in 2000 and put Greg Biffle in the car, and that kind of put Biffle on his, you know, rather circuitous, but still, you know, still clear path to getting into the Cup Series full-time by 2003. That's the kind of stuff that I think needs to happen. So hopefully that'll happen, but that would be another thing to look at there at the same time. In 2006, Mark Martin ran 14 truck races and won 6 of them. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Brian. I mean, that's the way that all, you know, all that comes together. It could be the same success rate. So that would be another thing to look at. But yeah, I think it's better off the paint scheme's retired. I don't know. I mean, there's, you know, they've run it so much now since then. Would that make any difference? I mean, it's kind of like retiring the 3 again now after bringing it back with Austin Dillon and you know, Ty Dillon even ran it this weekend in Xfinity. I mean, would it make any difference at this point? I think it's already, once you've brought it back, I would think it would kind of spoil that, because now you're starting to retire it for reasons separate from the original intent. But yeah, it would have been nice initially if they just stopped running. I mean, they basically did. They basically, I don't remember it being run as often, at least after the plane crash in 2004. But unless I'm just forgetting something. But yeah, who does Hendrick have in development or coming through the ranks? I don't know. I'm not plugged into all that. But if they don't have somebody, find somebody. I mean, gosh, there's a whole world of drivers out there. And it's even more important now. I mean, now if it was Shane Van Gisbergen pulling off that win at the Chicago Street Course, I mean, who's to say it can't be an international talent either? So you literally have like everybody to search through. And you're telling me that none of them would be interested in running Xfinity races and Hendrick equipment? I find that hard to believe, but we'll see. So, Truck Series side of this there, Kyle Busch pulls off the win in the last lap pass on Corey Heim. Heim led 27 laps, but it was not Heim time in this race, and he finishes in the second spot. Tyler Gray in third. Christopher Bell, who also shouldn't have been in the race, finished in fourth place. Grant Enfinger in fifth. Ty Majeski, Christian Eckes, Dean Thompson with another good top 10 run. Good for him. Ben Rhodes and Matty D rounding out the top 10. Carson Hocevar just outside the top 10, driving the number 42. Good job by Caden Honeycutt, finishing in the 20th spot there. Almost got 19th at the end in an unsponsored number 44 entry for Al Neese's team. Good job also by Stephen Malozzi, our Outback Steakhouse employee there, turned race car driver. One of the best runs he's had, almost 2 spots short of his career best in his debut at Mid-Ohio last year. Malozzi comes back in the 24th spot there. And then also I was very impressed following what was happening at Brett Holmes Racing and the number 32 truck that had a tie rod issue there and still finished the race under power, even gained some spots from the big wreck that in that race that happened there off of turn 1, getting Ross Chastain, Kaz Gralla, Stuart Friesen, Austin Hill, and then the most spectacular aspect had to be Zane Smith with that fire underneath the front of his truck there, pulling off there and finishing in the 34th spot there. But good to see Zane get out of that truck very quickly there. But still a short afternoon for several of those drivers there. And then I guess we got the Truck Series Championship getting set pretty soon here, too. We're down to, I guess, the last few races on that schedule already. Kind of throws me off here. It's still just July. But the way they've staggered this all with the playoffs is always, I think, been a little bit difficult to follow through on here. But your last place finisher in this, Tanner Gray, his first last place run in 3 years, finishing the 36th spot there. The Dead on Tools entry had a very hard crash in turn 1, kind of set the tone for the whole weekend. It kind of really seemed like it here, finishing in the 36th spot. Jake Garcia, Zane Smith, Austin Hill, and Stuart Friesen rounding out the bottom 5 in that respect. So a pretty open and shut last place battle in the Truck Series, and to a lesser extent the Xfinity Series, of course, once the 44 fell out of the race there. But yeah, unfortunate that we didn't quite get a battle of the Chastains. Chad Chastain was looking to race against his older brother Ross Chastain, of course the Cup Series regular for Trackhouse Racing. Chad Chastain was entered in the number 20 for Randy Young's team, and the Trophy Tractor entry just missed the cut. Their fastest truck to not make the show was sent home along with Jim Rosenblum's FDNY Racing with Brian Dozit aboard, as well as Norm Benning, who seemed to be running the same truck he had from North Wilkesboro. So that was kind of a short afternoon for those teams as well. Pennsylvania, of course, being the home track for Norm Benning Racing over there in Pennsylvania. We'll see who turns up this coming week there for Richmond for the Truck Series and the Cup Series, and of course for Road America for the Xfinity Series. Our William Saki has covered the Road America race in years past there, since that's his home track. However, he has another obligation, so he's not going to be able to make it out there this weekend. So I will be doing the Xfinity Series roundup for that race this weekend, as well as the Truck Series and Cup Series. We are in the process of getting William approved to hopefully cover the upcoming race at Milwaukee for the return of the Milwaukee Mile with the Truck Series and the ARCA Menard Series. So we're looking forward to him doing some great coverage out there, and I appreciate him volunteering his time for that as well. I will hope to get some good coverage out there. For me, again, the next race we're still looking at is going to be Phoenix for the championship. We're on the fence about either doing Kansas or Vegas in the fall. We haven't made any plans on either of those yet. We're still kind of figuring things out. I think the big X factor on that is just getting the book locked up and getting that posted. We're very close to that, by the way. I mentioned the title getting locked in last week. The book is now going to be called Cope, which, of course, is a biography of Derek Cope. The cover illustration is nearly complete. I'm going to be submitting that to the editor very soon, and then we'll be able to kind of get rolling on that as well. And then, of course, just as important, the videos on this channel. It's been a very productive week. Been a little bit of challenging here with my father and my younger brother out of town. So we're kind of doing more house sitting kind of stuff this week here. But in between that, I've been able to kind of get some good writing on the 3 scripts there, which will be a next driver profile, a next field fillers episode, and the next 500 days. So it's going to be a matter of, I'd like to start recording this week. I still want to kind of finish doing edits and get that going, but I think it's going to be well worth the time once that's recorded and worked out here. Brian, I saw you here in the chat. Big thanks again to Brian Hallman at the BRH Racing Archives for just tremendous material he's been able to provide for these. I can't wait to share it with you guys because I think it's going to be some really interesting stories and a good way to build off of really all 3 of these, between not just field fillers and 500 days, but also the individual driver stories. Those are less interconnected, although there is some overlap sometimes because we're talking about a whole driver's career. Sometimes another driver we talk about kind of jumps into it there, and that'll be kind of another aspect with this too. And yes, Chuck Bound is going to be the next feature for the standalone video. I was just actually doing the thumbnail on that one last night. Making some good progress on that. Don't have any information on release dates, but those of you who are in the Patreon, $5 level and up, patreon.com/lastcaronbrock, you'll have advance access to those videos when they are posted. There's also a video that I recorded for NASCAR Man that is also in the works. I don't have an idea on the release date on that. As to the subject matter, I'll leave it to him to release because that's his deal there. But it was a very good script, and I think you guys are going to very much enjoy that as well. If you are a $1 and up member in the Patreon, you will have advanced access to that video, as well as the other NASCAR Man history videos that I narrate for him from that. So we have a lot coming up here. I think it's going to be a good summer, or late summer at this point. We're getting into August now. To check all that out. So I can't wait to share that with you guys as well. So we'll do some trivia here to wrap up the evening. I don't believe we have any more work with, do we have any other word exactly about technical inspection? Let's see here. Nope, I don't think we have anything on this. Yeah, we got other interviews with Larson there at the same time. Alrighty. Okay, so let's bring out the trivia deal here, and I might jump away from the screen here for just a moment. I do have something for show and tell here, but we'll do that in just a moment. Alrighty. Okay, so again, we got the late 90s deal here. We'll do some trivia questions here to wrap up the show for this evening. The categories, once again, are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Those are, again, the categories. NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. So those will be coming up here in just a moment. So definitely go ahead and pick which category you'd like. I'm going to step away from the camera for just a moment, so I'll put the loading screen back up, but I'll be back, and then whichever category is the top one, we'll go ahead and do that, and we'll do some questions for this evening. And if you have any other questions from this week or this weekend that I haven't covered yet, definitely let me know, and we'll hop into that too. Okay, so I will be right back. Okay, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. So we will jump into this here in just a moment. Looks like drivers is probably the lead category for our chat here tonight. Mark Bancroft, I see your question there about the reaction to Austin Dillon's crash. Yeah, pretty scary, but I agree with what USA showed, where there actually was some actual deformation of the car. Like it looked like the car actually took its share of the impact. It actually looked like it wasn't, we saw how many wrecks do we see last year, even minor wrecks where, the car didn't crush at all. And it seemed like the car was fine. It would kind of keep going. Those are the real serious wrecks, because then of course all the energy is just going right through the driver. We saw a glimpse of that even this year with Noah Gragson's accident at Gateway. But yeah, ever since like the spring Richmond race, we saw Yaley back into the wall and actually crunched the rear clip, much like the old cars did. I was glad to see, the car actually kind of shows a bit more, that's actually responding a bit more. And I think we saw that certainly from Dillon getting out of the car. So I'm glad he's okay. I don't blame him for being upset, because much like Kyle Larson, like I said, he was coming back from a spin in turn one. He was 11th when he spun out. It was his own fault. It seems like he crossed Reddick's nose, but it's still, I don't blame him for being frustrated at all, but I'm glad he's okay. Certainly he was checked and released at the infield care center. That's good to see. But then, yeah, from there. So we'll do some driver's questions here in a moment, but I got a couple of things here for show and tell. So first thing I want to show here, I want to bring this out for Pocono. I've been hanging on to this for a bit here, but I figured Pocono would be a good race weekend to bring this out. I mentioned before that one of my favorite moments from the sport's recent history was that 2017 race at Pocono, where Ryan Blaney scored his first win and celebrated in victory lane. And Bubba Wallace was making his first start, driving for the Petties, driving the number 43 car in his relief driver role after Eric Almirola's wreck at Kansas. And both of them were celebrating. I know Bubba was exhausted after the race there, but both of them got to celebrate. And you got one guy here that's driving the iconic number 21 that David Pearson made famous. And you got another driver here that's driving, King Richard's 43. And I always thought that was really cool, because I remember saying at the time, the young guys in the sport, the future's in good hands. You got like other drivers coming up there. And, for all that's happened in the years since then, now both those drivers are race winners, and they're both with even better teams than they were at that moment. But one thing I never realized, I didn't know that they ever made diecast out of that 43 car that Bubba drove in that race that year. So, until a while back, I picked this up right here. And there it is. They, I guess, I didn't really collect 24 scale as much in 2017, but this right here, actually autographed by Bubba there on the windshield here, has the actual paint scheme, the actual Smithfield paint scheme. And it was right around that same time they ran Sears Point, and Billy Johnson drove the car on the road course, but he got in the car there too. So again, I thought that was pretty hip. So I definitely had to pull the trigger on that. And yeah, I'm gonna have to find a good place for it. I've always had a soft spot for the Petty cars in general, but this one always really kind of stands out to me. And that moment in particular, I would have loved it if I don't know if they made one out of his All-Star winning car, which I guess was 2021 or 2020. Well, I guess it wouldn't be 2021. It would probably been 2019 that he won the Open. But between those two, I think those were really cool moments there, and definitely a time that was pretty exciting there with him in the 43 car. So I definitely wanted to bring that out there for the show here as well. Also, I came into possession of, I want to, big thanks to Brent Wentz over at the Days Gone By shop here. I did pick up that Spam fanny pack there. I'm glad Slap Shoes got the other one. They made like these Lake Speed fanny packs that had the Spam car on there. And I'm glad that he pulled the trigger on. I ended up pulling the trigger on the other one. And he threw in a package of race cards here. So I figured it'd be kind of fun to maybe just kind of open these up on the show here and see what we got in here. So let's find out. Maybe we'll have something to say. Maybe we'll have some last place contenders here at the same time, and then that'll be kind of fun here to kind of tie together. So let's see. So we'll bring this down. Whoop, there we go. All right. Here we go. So half expecting a thing of chewing gum in here. All right, here we go. Well, we got a sweepstakes card in here. How about that? Let's see what's this say here. Or how about here? What's the term here? Random drawings on or about January 31st, 1992. Okay, a little bit late on this one here. But that's definitely from that time period there. Looks like we got a scratcher for, you either get 1,000 packs of Max Race cards, one of 500 Bill Elliott autographed Max Race cards, one of 100 full sets of 1992 cards, or, oh, here we go, qualify to win a trip for 4 to the Winston in 1992 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Look at that last column there. See if I can bring that to focus there a little better. I'm going to have to do a different cam that can make that a little bit easier to see. But yeah, that was pretty hip there. So there you go. So there's a sweepstakes. I don't know if that would have a ticket. I wonder if the seat was left empty or if they just, somebody else had the seat there at one hot night. Alrighty. Well, let's see who we got here, folks. So hang on. Here, let's bring the camera up this way. All right, first of all, we got Donnie Allison. We got him in his, it's like he's wearing a Hawaiian Tropic shirt here. Looks like it's number 87. What's that on there? I thought it said some Masters in, but that wouldn't be Del McCowart. Master, number 87. Oh, no, it's on his hat, too. Master Machine and Tool Company, number 87 race team. It's probably, okay, well, I see another person behind him with number 87 on their shirt, too. Where is this? Does it say on the card? No, it doesn't say on the card. So this would be 1990s. These are cards from 1991. So you got cards from 1990. I'm guessing if it's 87, it's got that font. It looks like Randy Baker's scheme there. I was wondering if that was Martha Nemechek behind him. I don't think it is. Yeah, that's hard to tell. It's really... Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I kind of want to say that's kind of what it looks like. Yeah, Heinz. Yeah, it does kind of look almost like the ketchup sponsor of the 57. But yeah, see if we kind of bring it, trying to get it in focus. There you go. Yeah, see, it's like an 87 there. That's kind of interesting. There you go. So there's the first one. Oh, here we go. We got the Unical race stoppers here. There you are. Unical 76. Yeah, the days before Sunoco. Sponsored by Unical, the race stoppers began appearing at races at the 1969 Daytona 500. Always a popular feature with race fans. A feature. The current 3 members of the race stoppers were Valley Elliott, Lisa Schroeder, and Pam Reimer. There you go. So there you go. So you got the Unical race stoppers there. There you are. Next we got, for you Busch Series fans, we got LD Ottinger, the Detroit Gasket uniform here. So we got that too. Oh, Donnie's got a new interview out. Okay, I have to check that out. Oh, Donnie was an advisor for Strickland. I didn't know that, Brian. Okay, right on. Hey, all right, yeah, maybe it was. I think it says 87 on this, but maybe it's still related to the Osterlund team there. That would be interesting. Yeah, LD Ottinger, we got more of a veteran driver here from the old Busch Series or the Sportsman days here. So you got there the Oldsmobile uniform. Okay, we got a couple cards here for individual races for the 1990 Winston Cup season. First, we have the spring race at Martinsville with Jeff Bodine in victory lane. So you got him there. Margin of victory, 4.5 seconds. 12 lead changes among 5 drivers. Jeff Bodine won the pole, lost the lead on the first lap, but held the lead 4 times during the race, including the final 137 laps for his first win of the season at Martinsville. In an afternoon-long battle of the pit crews with Rusty Wallace, Bodine's crew executed a 4-tire change, and get this, folks, 4 tires in 19.6 seconds during the 10th and final caution period to beat Wallace back onto the track on lap 364 and easily cruised to the checkered flag. So there you go. What was Detroit Gasket? I guess it was, they seem like they backed a lot of different teams. So I think there was a logo for them. Gosh, was it at JD's shop? I thought it was. Yeah, I think literally just, I'm sure just head gaskets for cars. But yeah, there you got the Ottinger one. We got another race review here. Oh, here we go. Now we got the 1990 Fall Rockingham race. Late great Alan Kulwicki in victory lane. His only win in the second version of his Xerox paint scheme after winning in 1988 at Phoenix. Won the 89 Fall race at Rockingham. Alan Kulwicki led 6 times for 155 of 492 laps, including the last 55 after taking the lead from Bill Elliott. Boasts his first win since November 1988 at Phoenix. The race ended under caution. With both finishing 3 laps back, the Richard Childress team gained 5 points on Mark Martin in the Winston Cup Championship race, though Martin still held a 45-point lead with 2 races remaining, and Ken Schrader won the pole. So there you go. So we got Alan Kulwicki. We have no issues with inspection. Okay. Hang on. We'll confirm that there as well. Sounds like we may have a lockup there for Suarez and his last place finish. It's on Jayski. I don't see it on Pocris. It's probably, you see, I think you guys said Jayski there. We'll check that. Well, hang on. I don't need that. Yes, 4 minutes ago. Inspection is complete at Pocono. No issues for Denny Hamlin. He's officially the winner. The 19 of Truex and the 4 of Harvick will return to the R&D Center for inspection. The number 47 of Stenhouse will return to Concord, North Carolina for a wind tunnel test. Okay, very interesting. So congratulations to Denny Hamlin for what will no doubt be still a popular victory there, but not in the eyes of everybody there. As well as locking up the last place finish for Daniel Suarez, his first of the season. So we'll do the last few cards here, and then we'll do some questions. Lightning round, we got Bill Elliott here in the 1990 season. He won just one race there that year. Trying to remember which one that was. I wanted to say the July Daytona race, but that was Earnhardt. Probably was Michigan, I want to say. I believe that was. But there you go. So we got awesome Bill. Next up here, this is another driver that's going to feature in one of my videos very closely. We got Jimmy Hensley. When he was driving either for the, I think he's got the Fast Fair logo. So he must be over to Don Beverly's team there. Busch Series 1 win. Most popular driver twice in the series. His personality and perseverance make him a champion as well as a pleasure to work with, says Dr. Jerry Punch. So there you go. Here we go. We got road courses coming up. How about Tom Kendall? There you go. Tommy Kendall there back when he was making his first couple starts. This would be before he took over for Kyle Petty when he was recovering from his injuries, driving the number 40 entry, I believe, in this shot here. Darren Brassfield, I think, ran that car before. He's got Power. I don't remember Power Bar even existing in 1990, but he's got as one of his sponsors there. But yeah, Tommy Kendall, old TK there. Well, the other TK, not the more recent version. Here we got, here's a throwback. Phil Parsons. Just saw him in the booth here this week here for the Truck Series race, or I guess the Charlotte studio, to be more accurate. But there he is standing in front of what looks to be HB Bailey's hood opened up there behind him. So you got Phil Parsons, you got the Diamond Ridge Racing, so driving for Gary Bechtel at the time. So we got that. Let's see. Here's Larry McClure, co-owner of Morgan McClure Motorsports. You got him on that one. Along with Tim Morgan. Here's, it's always a name always fun to say, Mike Alexander. Mike Alexander took over for Bobby Allison after his wreck at Pocono. Ran the number 84 for a lot of his career in the short tracks. Ultimately did as well at the Stavola team there before Dick Trickle took over for him. And I believe he drove for Bobby Allison's team in early 1990. So he's got the Ray Bestis uniform there when Ray Bestis joined on to join that effort. We got another Busch Series driver. We got Tommy Houston here. Tommy Houston and his, probably the Rose's Stores machine here. If I can pull that back a little bit. There you go. Got him in the driver's cockpit there. Think of Andy Houston, of course, featuring in the the 500 Days story. I believe his son, if I'm not mistaken. Crew Chief Mike Beam had a good long career. Here he is with Junior Johnson, looks to be. No, that's Bill Elliott's team. That would be, okay, it's a Coors uniform. So yeah, Bill Elliott's team on that. So that'll be Melling's effort. So Mike Beam on that. Just got two more cards here. First one of these, Mickey Gibbs, one of those lesser-known drivers from Alabama. Ran for Team 3 Racing in 1991. Here he is in the Days Inn, number 01 entry. I'm trying to remember who the team owner was on that. Gosh, that's going way back. I haven't studied 1990 in a little while. Mickey shows a lot of promise. His ride next year with the team he has set up will show his true colors, says Bob Jenkins. So there you go. He seems to be the kind of driver that you like to see in Winston Cup, says Harold Pearson of the Richmond Times-Dispatch. He has talent, is personable, articulate, and outgoing. He has a lot going for him and should make a solid contribution to the sport. So again, that is on there. So there you go. And the last card here is, of course, Rick Mast. We get a Rick Mast card here to cap this one off. So there you go. I think Rick is going to prove to be one of the best drivers on the circuit, says Harold Pearson again. He has shown what he can do in Grand Nationals with little or no backing. With the team he's going to be affiliated with and the equipment at his disposal, he's going to be an excellent driver. So this being a reference to him going to Richard Jackson's team in 91. I guess in 90... Yeah, because in 90, Terry Labonte drove the number one car. So yeah, so that would be at that point. So this is kind of a little bit of a season preview here with some of these teams, but him in, I think he's driving for Ulrich. No, he's driving for Carter. He's got the Banquet Frozen Foods logo there on the lapel. So there you go. So you got Rick Mast to round that out. So yes, there you go. Definitely some blasts from the past. I'll be mixing these into I like to send out cards to my Patreon members there as well. And just kind of mix them in with a lot of mailings. Also, if people for people that are interested in picking up stickers for the site, I often throw them in there as well. So I'll put these into the mix as well. And if you're interested in any of those, if you pick up a sticker at my eBay page, which is linked on the lastcar.info page, we got plenty of stickers available. Or if you're interested in joining any level of the Patreon, or if you're an existing member of the Patreon, I tend to throw them in there with the newsletters as well. Definitely look into that. Patreon.com/lastcaronbrock, and then we'll have those available as well. So I hope you enjoyed that as well. A little bit of a throwback thing too. And big thanks to Brent Wentz over at the Days Gone By race shop there on Etsy. Between him, a great job that he does over there with the archive. Big thanks to him there for getting that spam fanny pack out here. I'm still debating about what to do with it there. It might actually end up being a gift because I know somebody else that's very much into the spam stuff. So we'll see. But that'll be something else that we'll be figuring out along the way here. So let's do some driver's question. It looks like that was the top category, and we'll wrap this up here at the same time. Let's see here. Yeah, inspection complete. So yeah, so we're set on that. So it will be a Suarez article later tonight. Addington Racing. Oh yeah, you're talking about the Truck Series, right, Ryan? Yeah, with Andy Houston. I tend to think of it more on the Cup side, but that's just because I've always been more biased towards Cup stuff. I'm actually kind of getting kind of a crash course in early 2000s truck and Xfinity, or Busch Series, of course. By watching some of the stuff for 500 days, but that's been fun. That's been fun for sure. All right, so here we go. First question here, folks. What car number took David Pearson to the first of his Winston Cup wins in 1961? What car number took David Pearson to the first of his Winston Cup wins in 1961? There you go, Brian. Yeah, I've seen. Yeah, you got the LD1. Oh, okay, I didn't think about that. Good catch. Good catch, Brian. Yeah, LD Ottinger won the Bristol race that Mike Waltrip crashed in 1990. Good catch. Good catch. Oh, we're starting to get guesses here for the number. Let me read this off again here. What car number took David Pearson to the first of his Winston Cup wins in 1961? Don't look it up. Try to guess it there. We got guesses for 16 and 21 and 06 and 6 and 17. Here we go. The answer is 3. 3 is the correct answer. Maserati 9, looks like you got it. We're on to the Watermelon Dew today, so we got that on hand for this evening's show. Alrighty. Next question. I did try both the Baja Blast ones that came out. Those weren't that good. They were okay, but they weren't. Yeah, they weren't higher up the leaderboard. Alrighty, next question here, folks. Whose string of 336 consecutive starts ended at the 1998 Prime Star 500? Whose string of 336 consecutive starts ended at the 1998 Prime Star 500? Whose string of 336 consecutive starts ended at the 1998 Prime Star 500? Just looking at the sleeve here for the cards, there's another sweepstakes thing it says on here. There's a max 500 sweepstakes. Send a self-addressed stamped envelope by November 30th, 1991 to this address in Birmingham, Alabama. Residents of Washington may omit return postage, void where prohibited. And I think it's interesting to look at the packaging here too. I think that's got to be Greg Sachs. Oh, yeah, it's got the 18 on the roof. So it kind of did a repurposed version of the Slim Fast car on the front. And then the car behind it, it's a little harder to see. It's got a 6 on it, but no, actually, it looks kind of like an Earnhardt, and they just kind of fudged a number on there. And then behind that, the car's kind of pointed at a different angle, so it's a little hard to tell. Yeah, definitely, using some other graphics from 1990 there, too. All right, let me read the question again. Whose string of 336 consecutive starts ended at the 1998 Prime Star 500? You got guesses for Sterling Marlin, Morgan Shepherd, Terry Labonte, Ward Burton, Lake Speed. This is a good spread of guesses. Ted Musgrave, Rick Mast, Dave Marcus. Here we go. Whose string of 336 consecutive starts ended at the 1998 Prime Star 500? The answer is Sterling Marlin. Marlin with DNQ driving for Sabco. The first couple starts he had with Sabco. Glenn 7000, looks like you were the first one to that one. There you go. Good on you. I think you're the only one that guessed him, too. All right. Next question here. What was Neil Bonnet's car number in 1988? What was Neil Bonnet's car number in 1988? What was Neil Bonnet's car number in 1988? All right, we got guesses for 54 and 75 and 21 and 76 and 31. Here we go. All right, one more time. What was Neil Bonnet's car number in 1988? The answer is indeed 75. The Raymock team. 75 is correct. Glenn 7000, you got it. Yep, Brian, you got it too. Jason Toth. Andrew Bremner. 611 Hornet. Yep, a lot of you got it. It's too easy. Turbo 14, you got it too. Ooh, here's a good question. Here, got a little bit of a sports car crossover here, folks. Next question here. What NASCAR Winston Cup champion won the Rolex 24 Hours at Daytona in 1987? What NASCAR Winston Cup champ won the Rolex 24 Hours at Daytona in 1987? What NASCAR Winston Cup champion won the Rolex 24 Hours at Daytona in 1987? Alrighty. So we got guesses for Elliott and Earnhardt and Waltrip. All right, let's see. Sounds like Bill Elliott. Well, we'll see. We will see. Oh, by the way, No Tires, Just Gas. Thank you for the pictures this weekend, too. I got your pictures there. And you weren't the only one as well. I got we had, again, a pretty good contingent of people watching the last place battles. I'd like to also thank Speedway Collective at SC Fantasy Racing, who also provided pictures. Also, Zach Leffler provided some great pictures as well. So big thanks to the three of you there. That was definitely helpful. And I got some pictures that will definitely help with the articles this weekend. The Xfinity and trucks are already up. And the Cup article will be coming up here very soon. What NASCAR Winston Cup champ won the Rolex 24 Hours at Daytona in 1987? The answer is Bill Elliott. Elliott is the correct answer. A lot of you got that one. A lot of you got it. Brian, you were first on that one. 611 Hornet there. Andrew Bremner. Glenn 7000. Turbo 14, you guessed Clyde. There you go. Maserati 9. Yes, indeed, the official last place finisher is Suarez. All right. Okay. So we'll do one more question here for the evening there, and we'll wrap up here, folks. Last question for the evening. Where did Curtis Turner win his first race once his racing ban was rescinded? Where did Curtis Turner win his first race once his racing ban was rescinded? Where did Curtis Turner win his first race once his racing ban was rescinded is the question. I mentioned this on Twitter. I know I don't follow IndyCar that much, but I do love the way the Juncos cars look in the IndyCar series. They just look pretty sick. All those geometric shapes, kind of futuristic numbers. Reminds me of what Trackhouse did when they first came on the scene. Kind of try to shake things up a little bit. I think that's pretty cool. The last question again. Where did Curtis Turner win his first race once his racing ban was rescinded? Seeing several guesses for Rockingham. We got Florida. We got Charlotte. We got Wilkesboro, the Chicago Street Course, sections of the Autobahn, Lakeland. All right, here we go. Where did Curtis Turner win his first race once his racing ban was rescinded? The answer is Rockingham, indeed. Rockingham. Glenn 7000, you were the first one on that, and several other catches. Excellent. A lot of you got that one. Maserati 9, you got it. Jason Toth. There you go. Can we watch Driven? Well, I'll probably get taken down. But yeah, we'll probably do something like that one of these days. Maybe something. I don't know. Maybe I don't know what the options are for doing all these streams and all that. We'll probably add some other features to this along the way. I got to get the screen hooked up more regularly here. But we'll get something figured out on that, but that'll be a lot of fun. But one of these days, we'll figure that out. Any rate, folks, well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Congratulations to Denny Hamlin, although I'm sure not everybody's happy with that one still. On the win today, your last place finisher will be Daniel Suarez, who joins Sage Karam in the Xfinity Series race, and then the Truck Series race, Tanner Gray, in the last place finisher in that. So all three articles will be up this evening. The Trucks and Xfinity are already up there. In the meantime, my Twitter feed is at LastCarOnBrock. I am no longer on Threads. I wasn't really happy with that site. It just didn't seem worth the time there. And honestly, I don't have enough material to excuse more than really one main social media thing. So we're still gonna be on Twitter at LastCarOnBrock. That's where you can find me. Here on the YouTube channel, we got more content coming up. Patreon is patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock. Our next show is going to be next week after the action in Richmond. We will talk about both the Truck Series and the Cup Series. We'll also talk about the Xfinity Series at Road America. So we'll have a little bit of short track action, a little bit of road course action, and we'll have some fun with that too. So that'll be about 15 minutes after the checkered flag in the Cup race. I added that to my banner on this channel as well to kind of help hopefully bring some more people here to the chat. But until then, have a great week, everyone, and I'll see you all next week.